Okay, so this next lesson is on rounding. Again, I want you to get your exercise book, please. I want you to do the usual, so date, title, margin, please. And then restart this video when you are ready to make a start. So the first thing that we're going to have a look at is rounding to a certain degree of decimal places. And the number that I'm going to have a look at is 2.75241 3. And what we can do is, first of all, we can round to one decimal place. Okay? So what we do is, we have a look at this, and we write down every number up to that. So I write down 2 point. Now what I have to decide is, I have to decide in that one decimal place, I have to decide whether that's going to be a 7 or an 8. And in order to decide that, I look at the next number involved, and if that is a 5 or above, then I round up. So that 7 becomes an 8. So to one decimal place, my answer is 2.8. And the reason that that's the case is because if I look at a number line, here's, say, I don't know, 2.5, here's 2.6, here's 2.7, here's 2.8, here's 2.9, and so on. If I take the number 2.75243 and put it on this number line, it will appear about there. And the point about this number is that it is much closer to 2.8 than it is to 2.7, which is why I've rounded to 2.8. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope that reminds you of something that you already know. Now, to two decimal places, what I need to do is I need to rub all this out and start again. So, to two decimal places, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the second decimal place. Okay, I'm going to write down everything up to that. So I write down 2.7. Now I have to decide whether the next digit is a 5 or a 6. Well, as you can see, the next digit along is a 2. So that is not a 5 or above. So I write down 2.75. In other words, that number is closer to 2.75 than it is to 2.76. Okay, I hope that makes sense. The second thing that we need to know, well, let's have a little example, and some of these are quite hard. So, there we go. So, let's have a look at 87.6564. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to round that to two decimal places. And my answer is going to be 87.6. Ooh, now what's the next number going to be? Is it going to be a 5? Is it going to be a 6? Let's have a look at the next digit along. This is a 5 or above, so it's closer to 87.66 than it is to 87.65. Okay, now we've got some tricky ones here. Okay, let's try 0.59999. Now to one decimal place, we have a look at the 5 and we look at the next digit. Is it a 5 or above? Yes, it is, so I'm going to round up. So that's quite easy. So that's 0.6. one decimal place. Two decimal places, well, for two decimal places, we have a look at this one, and then we have a look at whether this is a 5 or above, which it is, so therefore this needs to be rounded up. But where do I go from a 9? What do I do? The answer is this, 0.60, because if you round 0.59 up, it becomes 0.60. Okay? Hope that makes sense. So that's decimal places, and those are some examples. So what I'd like you to do in the class, I'd like you to start rounding some numbers to a certain number of decimal places, do the exercises in the book, and check with me that you're getting them right. Okay, I'm hoping this has just been revision for you. The next little bit that we need to do is significant figures. Okay, and what we're going to do is, if we have a look at a number like, let's say, 4,890,351, okay, this is the first significant figure, this is the second significant figure, this is the third, this is the fourth, this is the fifth, this is the sixth, this is the seventh. So if I ask you to round to one significant figure in this case, we look at the first significant figure, which is the 4. And so I have a think about what column that 4 is in. And the 4 is in the millions column. So I have to ask myself, if I want to round to one significant figure, the question is asking me to round to the nearest million. And this number rounded to the nearest million is 5 million, because that number is closer to 5 million than it is to 4 million. Let's say I wanted to round to two significant figures. Well, we identify where the second significant figure is. Let's just get rid of these lines so don't confuse things. The second significant figure is here, and it's in the hundreds, 100,000s column. So what I have to ask myself is, what 100,000 is it close to? 4,700,000, 4,800,000, 4,900,000. Well, that's it. It's closest to 4,900,000. Okay. So let's go on a bit. Let's say the fifth significant figure. We're going to round to 5 significant figures. Well, again, I'm going to identify the fifth significant figure in that problem. And the fifth significant figure is, of course, this one. And that's in the hundreds column. So I'm going to ask myself, which hundreds is it closest to? 4,890,200, 4,890,300, 4,890,400. And hopefully you realise it's closest to 4,890,400. Because 350 is in the middle, and the 400 is the one that it is closest to in this case. Okay? So again, what I'd like you to do in class is I'd like you to have a look at rounding numbers to a certain number of significant figures. Some of these can be quite hard, so let's just have a quick one. 150.932. Okay, well, to one significant figure, which hundreds is it closest to? 100, 200, 300, it's closest to 200. Two significant figures, that's the tens column in this case. The tens column, is it closest to 130, 140, 150, 160? Of course, it's closest to 150. Three significant figures, okay, which Which unit is it closest to? 149, 150, 151, 152. Well, because the next number is a 9, it's closest to 151. Four significant figures. What do you think it's going to be? Is it closer to 150.1, 150.2, 0.3, 0.4, so on? It is closest to 150.9. Last one, and I'm going to give up. Five significant figures. That's this one. And it is closest to 150.93. It's not closer to 150.94. It's not closer to 150.92. Okay.